Hi everyone, happy Arbor Day. It's because of that wonderful celebration we will not be meeting today, and so I'm recording this lecture so that you can be well versed on the material for Aquinas and his selections of that we read for this week, and so that you can partake in the discussion board effectively over the weekend with myself and your peers, and of course be prepared for the final exam ultimately. So here we go. In Summa Theologica, Thomas Aquinas systematically addresses key theological and philosophical questions, including the nature and purpose of law. Now, we were reading questions 90, 91, and 94. And these are part of his treatise on the law, which was the first part of the second part. Remember, I told you it was broken down into three. And so these questions focus on the essence of law, its various types, and the role of natural law in human life. And this is going to be very important, especially for later Enlightenment thinkers. So, in question 90, Aquinas begins by asking what law is in its most fundamental sense. And he defines law as a, quote, ordinance of reason for the common good made by one who has the care of the community and promulgated. So this definition has within it four critical aspects that we need to take apart. So one, law as an ordinance of reason. Aristotle, sorry. You remember, Aquinas is bringing us Aristotle, and we're really focusing on reason here. Aquinas emphasizes that law must be based on reason. It is not merely an arbitrary command, but a rational directive that orders human actions toward an appropriate end. This reflects his belief in the importance of human intellect and reason as reflections of divine order. Second, for the common good. Law must aim at the common good, not the benefit of an individual or specific group. Aquinas distinguishes between just laws, which serve the welfare of all, from unjust laws, which favor only certain people or interests. And in this way, law helps foster the harmony and well-being of the entire community. Third, made by one who has care of the community. Only a legitimate authority can make laws. Aquinas argues that those entrusted with governance, whether kings, rulers, or other officials, have the responsibility to create laws because they are charged with the welfare of the community. Promulgation. For a law to be binding, it must be made known to those who are subject to it. And this principle of promulgation ensures that the laws are public and that people have the opportunity to know what is required of them. So Aquinas is defining the law as a rational guide to human action, instituted by a legitimate authority for the common good and made known. So, question 91, the various kinds of law. Aquinas explores different types of law that exist, and he identifies four major kinds: the eternal, the natural, the human, and the divine. So let's go one by one, because these build on each other, as you will see. Eternal law. Aquinas argues that eternal law is God's governance of the universe. It is the highest form of law, reflecting God's reason and purpose for all creation. Eternal law orders everything toward its proper end, including both natural processes and human actions. While humans cannot fully comprehend eternal law, they participate in it through their rational faculties and moral inclinations. And this leads us to natural law. This is a subset of eternal law. It refers to the rational participation of human beings in eternal law, meaning that humans, by virtue of their reason, can discern certain fundamental principles of morality and justice. Aquinas famously states that the first precept of natural law is to, quote, to do good and avoid evil. And from this foundational principle, humans can derive secondary precepts, such as the obligation to preserve life, to procreate, educate offspring, live in society, seek truth, etc. Importantly, this natural law is universal. Third was the human law. Human law is derived from natural law, serving as a more specific set of rules and regulations designed to govern society. So while natural law provides broad principles, such as the pursuit of good and the avoidance of evil, human law applies these principles in concrete situations to maintain order and justice in society. For example, natural law dictates the protection of life, and human law enforces this through laws against things like murder. Aquinas stresses that human laws must be in harmony with natural order. If a human law contradicts natural law, it is unjust and loses its binding power. Fourth was divine law. Aquinas argues that divine law is necessary in addition to human laws and natural laws. Divine law is revealed through Scripture and directs humanity towards eternal happiness, which surpasses the temporal goals of human law. Aquinas identifies two key reasons for divine law. First, human law, because of its limitations, cannot fully guide people to their ultimate end, which is union with God. Second, human judgment is fallible, and divine law provides absolute clarity on moral matters that may be difficult for human reason to resolve. Divine law is divided further into two parts: the Old Law, the Mosaic Law of the Old Testament, and the New Law, the Gospel of Christ in the New Testament. And Aquinas teaches that while the Old Law prepared humanity for salvation, the New Law is the law of grace, helping people to live virtuous lives through the teachings and grace of Christ. So in summary, Aquinas sees law as a hierarchy. Eternal law governs the universe. Natural law provides moral guidance to humans. Human law ensures societal order, and divine law directs people towards their ultimate supernatural end. Now in question 94, you'll see that Aquinas goes much deeper into natural law. So, he's going to talk about its foundations, its principles, and its applications to human life. So first, the essence of natural law. Aquinas reaffirms that natural law is the rational creature's participation in eternal law. It is the aspect of divine order that humans can grasp through reason, enabling them to know the basic principles of morality. The most fundamental precept of natural law, as stated earlier, is to do good and avoid evil, and this principle underpins all other moral rules. Second, self-evident principles. Aquinas argues that the basic precepts of natural law are self-evident, meaning that they are known by all people through reason, without needing any special revelation. For instance, the obligation to preserve life, avoid harm, and act justly are principles that all rational beings can recognize. These principles are universally accessible, and they form the foundation for all human moral conduct. Third, we have the primary and secondary precepts. Aquinas distinguishes between primary and secondary precepts of natural law. The primary precepts are universal and unchanging, such as the duty to seek good and avoid evil. Secondary principles, however, involve more specific applications of the primary principles. While they are generally derived from natural law, there can be exceptions or variations due to particular circumstances or cultural contexts. For example, while it is universally wrong to kill innocent people, different societies may have varying rules about the just use of force in self-defense or warfare. I'm going to talk about this at the end here in terms of Aquinas' just war theory, which was in a part of Summa Theologica you were not assigned to read. Fourth, we have the mutability of natural law. Aquinas addresses the question of whether natural law can change. He argues that while the primary principles of natural law are immutable and eternal because they are based on reason and human nature, the secondary precepts can be subject to change. This occurs not because natural law itself changes, but because human circumstances, societal conditions, and specific applications may evolve. For example, societal norms related to property ownership or marriage may vary across time and place, but the underlying principles of justice and order remain constant. Fifth, human reason and natural law. According to Aquinas, all people have an innate knowledge of natural law, but human reason can sometimes err in its application. Human sin and ignorance can obscure a person's understanding of natural law, leading to moral errors. And this is why human societies need laws and authorities to help guide individuals and maintain order. Nevertheless, Aquinas insists that natural law is accessible to all rational beings and provides a reliable basis for moral judgment. 6, he talks about the universality of natural law. Despite acknowledging the possibility of errors in judgment, Aquinas holds that natural law is universal. All human beings, by their nature, are oriented toward the basic goods of life, such as self-preservation, procreation, social interaction, and the pursuit of truth. Therefore, while human cultures may interpret and apply these goods differently, the core principles of natural law remain constant across all societies. 7, the relationship between natural law and other forms of law. Aquinas spends some time discussing how natural law relates to human and divine law. Human law, he asserts, should be an application of natural law, tailored to the specific needs of a given society. Laws that contradict natural law are inherently unjust and lose their moral authority. Divine law, particularly the new law of Christ, builds upon natural law by providing additional guidance for achieving eternal salvation. So, in conclusion, the 3 questions that we read in Summa Theological, 90, 91, and 94, present what I think is a pretty comprehensive vision of Aquinas' vision of law as grounded in reason, the common good, and divine purpose. So just to review, in question 90, he defined law as an ordinance of reason aimed at the common good and promulgated by legitimate authority. In 91, he explained the hierarchy of the laws, the eternal, the natural, the human, and the divine, each serving a distinct but interconnected role in guiding human behavior. And then in 94, he delved into the natural law more fully, emphasizing its universality, immutability, its primary precepts, and its role in the rational foundation of all moral and legal systems. So, Aquinas' framework establishes that law is not arbitrary, but rooted in the rational and moral order of the universe, reflecting God's eternal wisdom. Through human reason, individuals can discern natural laws and apply it to create just societies, while divine law offers the ultimate guide for human salvation. 2 other things I wanted to talk about that aren't mentioned in your readings because they're not included in your book your overview of selections. If they had been, I would have assigned them. First is about just war theory, and another one that concerns us relates to what makes a political authority that was previously legitimate illegitimate, allowing for the possibility of rebellion against that authority, because we're interested in what makes political authority. So, just war theory. This comes from question 40. It's called question 40 of war. And in it, Aquinas outlines the conditions under which war can be considered morally justifiable. So here's just a quick summary. So 1, war must be declared by a legitimate sovereign authority. This means a legitimate ruler or government must sanction the war. Individuals and private groups do not have the right to declare war. Second, just cause. There must be a valid reason for war, such as defending against an attack, reclaiming something wrongfully taken, or punishing a wrongdoer. Aquinas stresses that aggression or conquest for selfish reasons does not constitute a just cause. Third, right intention. The war must be fought with the intention of achieving good or avoiding evil. The primary aim should be the restoration of peace and justice rather than personal gain, revenge, or destruction. So, Aquinas also spends some time discussing things like proportionality and how harm to non-combatants should be minimized, though these concepts are generally expanded later by other theologians. He doesn't spend a lot of time on that, but his framework remained very influential on Christian ethics and international law. So, as for rebellion against unjust rulers, this he addresses in question 42. He's specifically discussing the sin of sedition, along with the idea of resisting tyranny, because remember, this is a divine order. So, it's a very difficult tightrope for him to walk here. But here's what he has to say. Aquinas generally holds that rebellion and sedition are sinful because they disrupt the peace of society. However, he does allow for certain exceptions. 1, rulers as tyrants. If a ruler is unjust and governing tyrannically, Aquinas believes it can be more morally justifiable to resist them, but only under very specific conditions. The key issue is whether the tyranny is causing more harm than the rebellion would. If the tyranny is extreme and the common good is severely threatened, resistance may be justified. Second, legitimate authority and rebellion. Aquinas emphasizes that rebellion should be led by a legitimate authority. This means that individual subjects cannot unilaterally decide to rebel. But if a ruler has lost their legitimacy, such as a king acting contrary to the law or the common good, other rulers or representatives, such as lesser nobles, a governing council, magistrates, might be justified in leading a revolt. Third is tyrannical usurpation. Aquinas makes a distinction between lawful rulers, who became tyrannical, and those who unlawfully seized power. If a ruler unlawfully usurps power, subjects may have a stronger case for resisting, as the usurper lacks legitimate authority from the outset. In other words, there's what's called a chain of being. This is something that we're going to talk about later. But if you disrupt the chain of being by removing, God's representative on earth, the king, then you aren't subject to the same kinds of rights and legitimacy and protection against sedition. So in summary, Aquinas is very cautious about rebellion, and this is understandable, fearing the greater evil of social disorder. Remember where he's writing from, the place and the time. We spent a good deal of time talking about that on Monday. But he does recognize that under legitimate authority and with a proportionate cause, subjects may have a right to resist someone who's become tyrannical and is not serving with the common good in mind. So that's all I have for you today. Please watch this. Prepare yourself for a very rigorous discussion board this weekend, and please do enjoy your Arbor Day. Make sure to do the fun run and get your Hinckley's Donuts. All the best, and I'll see you Monday.